Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into some entitled people stories. Today we're watching entitlement clash with consequences in three very different situations. In one, a new neighbor feels entitled to a rocking chair just because she has grandkids. In another, a manager's petty rule backfires and costs the company thousands. And in the last, a disabled woman faces a violent attack from a relative who thinks her condition is fake. My neighbor felt entitled to my stuff because she has grandkids. I honestly have no words. I, 27, just bought my house in July 2024. We've learned that most of the neighbors are older. I think these neighbors are 60s plus and are very nosy and ornery that young families are moving into the neighborhood in recent years. They'll just walk up to you and tell you this. I've been shopping thrift and estate sales to furnish this cute house. This morning, I came home from an estate sale with a beautiful wing-backed rocking chair. It needs to be reupholstered as the leather that was on it is in terrible condition and the previous owner started pulling it off. I'm unloading it from the bed of my truck when neighbor Carol sticks her giraffe neck over the fence and starts squawking about how beautiful it is. I said thanks, I got it at an estate sale for $10. This triggered the parasites in her brain and she, I crap you not, teleported over to the truck. She starts going off about how much she needs a chair to rock her grandkids to sleep in and how much she would appreciate it if it was hers. I told her I got it for my future babies to be rocked to sleep in and that it still needs lots of work before it can be used. This is when she starts offering me money, $15, because it's more than what you paid for it, then telling me I don't need it because I don't have kids yet and her grandkids are only little for so long. After firmly telling her I wasn't interested in selling it, she offered me $20. I was standing in the bed of the truck, looking down at her on the driveway and firmly said, "No, Carol, I'm really not interested in selling this. Please go home," and pointed to her side of the fence. Apparently this was shouting at her and being aggressive. She ran home and later in the day her husband said something to my husband as he was getting home from a game, telling him I, edit, spoke to her like a dog and was being a nasty neighbor and that my husband needs to straighten me out. Are my neighbors nuts? Was I that rude to her? You weren't rude. Rude's inviting yourself onto someone's property to badger them into selling a personal item they just bought. You were direct. The fact that they're spinning this as you being aggressive for saying, "Please go home," tells you everything about their entitlement. They're not used to being told no. That's a them problem, not a you problem. And our second story. Our manager's petty rule cost the company thousands. I recently started a new job at a buffet-style smoothie place, and honestly, it's been one of the better jobs I've had. The work is fast-paced but straightforward, the coworkers are solid, and for the most part, management stays out of the way. The operation is split into two teams. There's the preparation group, which is where I work, and the mixing group. Prep handles measuring ingredients, portioning everything according to the company standards, and handing off the containers to mixing. Mixing does the actual blending, pouring, and dealing with customers face-to-face. Because this is a high-volume place, the proportions matter a lot. Everything is weighed, measured, and tracked. Sometimes, though, after the mixer has poured all the sellable portions, there's a bit left at the bottom that's technically out of spec. Maybe an ingredient settled wrong, maybe one portion went heavy. Either way, it's no longer sellable. The current policy is simple. That leftover bit can be poured into a cup and drunk by staff while working. It's not a perk anyone abuses, but it's nice, especially when you're on your feet for hours. Plus, it beats dumping perfectly good smoothies down the drain. When my coworkers explained this to me, they added very casually, "Yeah, we had to fight for that." Naturally, I asked what they meant, and that's when they told me the story. None of this involved me personally, since it happened well before I was hired, but it's become something of a legendary tale around the place. Apparently, things used to work exactly the same way. Prep and mixing did their jobs, leftovers happened, and staff drank them. No drama. Then one day, the manager at the time noticed someone drinking a leftover smoothie. Instead of asking questions or checking policy, he absolutely lost it. According to the people who were there, he started ranting about employee responsibilities, productivity, and how drinking smoothies while working was wasting time. Never mind that everyone was already allowed to drink water or that it took the same amount of time to swallow either one. Logic was not invited to this conversation. He ended the rant with a new rule. Dump all the leftovers, he said. I don't care how much it is. Dump it all. At first, people ignored him. They kept doing what they'd always done because it made no sense to throw out perfectly good product. Then one day, he caught someone again. This time, he didn't yell. He fired the guy on the spot. Fired for drinking a leftover cup of fruit smoothie that was going to be thrown away anyway. That sent shockwaves through the staff. The prep group was furious, but they didn't have much leverage. Most of them were underage and didn't even have contracts. The mixing group, however, did have contracts, and they were very familiar with what those contracts said. After hearing what happened, they sat down and reread every line related to proportions, waste, and compliance. That's when they realized something important. The proportion policy was far stricter than what the manager had ever enforced. Technically, if the mixer wasn't within exact specifications, the remaining contents were considered unusable and had to be discarded. No exceptions. And according to the manager's own words, everything out of spec was to be dumped. So they complied, aggressively. The mixing group changed how they built the mixers. They deliberately layered ingredients so that once the sellable portions were poured, a massive amount remained out of proportion at the bottom. Sometimes nearly half the mixer. All of it technically unsellable. All of it, per the manager's instructions, to be dumped. Before this, one mixer might yield 4 or 5 cups. After the change, it was 2, maybe 3, if you were lucky. The rest went straight into the sink. Nobody drank it, nobody saved it. They followed the rule exactly as it had been shouted at them. This went on for months. The waste was staggering. Smoothies made with expensive ingredients like avocado, dates, figs, and specialty supplements were being poured down the drain daily. Upper management didn't notice immediately, but eventually the number started screaming. Inventory orders didn't match sales. The cost of ingredients was almost double what it should have been. Someone, somewhere, was hemorrhaging money. One day, upper management showed up unannounced. They weren't smiling. They pulled records, checked inventory, and started questioning everyone on shift. How were they burning through this much product? Why didn't the sales reflect it? Where was everything going? That's when the staff told them calmly, clearly, in painful detail. They explained the leftover policy, they explained the firing, they explained the exact instructions they'd been given. Dump all the leftovers. I don't care the amount. Prep confirmed it. Mixing confirmed it. Everyone said the same thing. Upper management turned to the manager and asked him to explain. He couldn't. There was no justification, no policy backing his decision, no explanation for firing an employee over a smoothie while simultaneously demanding that vastly larger quantities be wasted. According to people who were there, he tried to deflect, tried to backpedal, and tried to claim he didn't mean it like that. Didn't matter. The losses over time were estimated in the thousands, possibly tens of thousands, and they had documentation, contracts, inventory logs, employee statements. The manager had created the problem, enforced it loudly, and then let it continue unchecked. There's a reason I never met that manager. By the time I started working there, the policy had quietly reverted to what it should have been all along. Leftovers get drunk, waste is minimized, nobody yells about productivity while literally pouring money down a drain. And if you ask anyone who's been there long enough, they'll just smirk and say the same thing. He wanted everything dumped, so they dumped everything. Funny how strict enforcement suddenly stops being important when it shows up on a balance sheet. That last line is the lesson. Power's one thing, but profit is the universal language of management. The staff didn't argue, they didn't defy, they just followed the bad rule to its logical, expensive conclusion and let the numbers do the talking. It's a masterclass in malicious compliance. And our last story. My aunt, who thought my disability was fake, violently attacked me at a family dinner. I recorded the whole thing, and now she's facing charges. I, 31-year-old female, was born with a severe genetic disorder called EDS, hypermobility type. The illness varies greatly from person to person. Most can lead relatively normal lives with some pain and problems. EDS is essentially a group of disorders caused by defective collagen in the body. This results in a host of issues, including joint hypermobility, which causes joints to be so loose and unstable that they dislocate or subluxate, partially dislocate, constantly. Severe joint and soft tissue pain due to constant dislocations and the resulting damage to the joints, among other things. Extreme chronic fatigue, skin that bruises easily and in thin areas can even tear, dizziness when standing up because my blood pressure drops rapidly. About 11 years ago, my disorder worsened significantly, and I was forced to start using a wheelchair to get around, as walking more than 100 feet became extremely dangerous for me. The risk of falling due to a hip dislocation was high. In the last 3 years, I upgraded to an electric wheelchair because pushing a manual chair became too painful. For reasons I don't fully understand, my aunt, 54-year-old female, has an extreme dislike for disabled people, especially those in wheelchairs who can still move their legs. For 11 years, whenever we were alone, she treated me worse than a dog and insisted that my disorder was completely fake and made up. She claimed I was lying about it because I wanted all the attention focused on me, believing I was jealous of anyone else receiving attention, especially her. I tried to confront her about it and talk things out, but since I was already overwhelmed by my condition, I ended up keeping her comments to myself. Since I'm not confrontational and don't see her often throughout the year, I didn't want to burden anyone with it, especially as I already had to ask for so much help from the people around me, and my parents were exhausted from all the doctor's visits during that time. So for the past 11 years, I've just ignored every comment she made when we were alone because I'd grown accustomed to it. I absolutely didn't care what she thought at this point and knew she was just being an idiot. That was until things really escalated last week when I went to visit my aunt for our yearly family dinner. She was the one who organized the dinner this year. All was going well until she drank more than usual and became a lot snarkier toward me in front of the family. This caused some family members to call her out and tell her it was inappropriate and uncalled for. She silently fumed, giving me death stares afterward. My parents noticed this and kept an eye on her. Unfortunately, at some point, I went into the kitchen on the other side of the house to take a break from my aunt's stares and take my medication in private. My aunt followed me into the kitchen and closed the door behind her. I knew this wasn't good since she was clearly intoxicated, so I discreetly started recording the incident on my phone. Since the door was closed and we were far from the others, with many people talking loudly in the other room, no one could hear us, even if I screamed. My aunt began asking if I was enjoying being an attention hog and ruining her dinner by humiliating her. I slowly tried to maneuver my wheelchair toward the door while apologizing, telling her that wasn't my intention. At that point, I tried to say what she wanted to hear so I could get to safety. She started raising her voice, accusing me of being jealous of her success and faking my disorder out of laziness. She began calling me every name in the book, yelling nonsense at me. I started to think she might be having a mental breakdown and began crying, pleading with her to let me go. Realizing I needed to get out of there, I decided I couldn't do so in my chair, so I tried to get out of it. Unfortunately, she turned violent and pushed me back into the chair hard. She screamed that she wasn't done yet and that liars like me needed to be taught a lesson. She started hitting me in the face as hard as she could, which dislocated my jaw. Then she tried to pull me out of the chair, dislocating my arm, but I fought back, so she failed. She then somehow managed to push my chair over on its side, causing my foot to get stuck behind the footrest. Luckily, my dad, noticing my absence and that my aunt was also gone, became concerned and began searching for me. My father later told me I let out such a blood-curdling scream that it was audible throughout the entire dining room, prompting him and my mom to sprint toward the sound. At this point, I was starting to lose consciousness from the pain. I remember my dad bursting through the door. From what I was told, my dad body-slammed my aunt, his younger sister, and punched her to make sure she stayed down. My mom screamed for someone to call 911, which my nephew did immediately. My mom then got me free from the wheelchair and tried to recall her first aid training. Meanwhile, my dad pinned my aunt to the floor while my aunt's husband stood there in complete shock, not knowing what to do. The police and ambulance arrived and they put my aunt in cuffs. She screamed at my dad, asking how he dared to lay hands on a woman, no less his sister. My uncle then tried to defend my aunt, claiming they didn't know what had happened and that I could have tipped over myself after trying to attack her. He insisted his wife would never do something like this and that it had to be provoked. He apparently said much worse things, but my parents won't specify what exactly. I regained consciousness at this point, likely due to receiving some strong pain medication. It's still a blur because the medication left me disoriented. I was taken away by the ambulance while my aunt was taken to jail. At the hospital, I was found to have multiple fractured ribs, a dislocated arm, and a dislocated jaw. I also suffered a concussion from the punches, but the worst damage was to my foot, which turned out to be broken. I also have cuts and scrapes everywhere because my skin is so fragile. Fortunately, the injuries weren't severe enough to require surgery, but with my disorder, it'll take at least 10 weeks in a cast, followed by physical therapy, although my ankle will likely be permanently damaged. The sheer calculated cruelty of this attack is staggering. She targeted your most vulnerable areas, knowing your condition would amplify the damage. Your father's intervention wasn't just protective, it was life-saving. I feel guilty for ruining someone's life. I've gotten multiple voicemails from different numbers with her screaming how I ruined her life and probably their finances after this. My uncle's trying to save his own reputation by sticking to my aunt's side, but that's short-lived since he wants a divorce. A few family members and them are making me doubt if I've done something wrong here, so that's why I'm asking if I'm the a-hole. I'm putting this in afterward because it somehow got deleted, but I ended up sharing the footage on a private group page for our family, for the whole family to see. But it might have been wrong, but seeing the reactions, it was probably the right thing. After that crap hit the fan for her, so that's why she's even more angry. Edit. A lot of people don't understand that when you're badly disabled, at least in my case, that people will constantly tell you you're at fault for things. That plus past traumatic experiences have made it really difficult for me to even stand up for myself or know when I'm truly at fault for things. It's hard for me to discern when people are just trying to basically gaslight me into believing I'm the cause of the issue. So I hope people will understand a bit better why my mind makes me think I might be at fault for these things. Edit 2. Yes, we're getting a restraining order and pressing charges. The thought of her coming after me is too much. For people wondering how I was given pain meds when I wasn't conscious, as I said, I think I regained it due to pain meds, but I don't remember a lot of what happened due to the pain, but I'll ask my parents when I got the meds. My parents are reluctant to talk about how they found me and what happened because they'd rather have those memories buried instead of haunting me. The footage was handed over to the police and is backed up on multiple platforms. I'm currently thinking I'm going to sue since I have insurance that covers legal costs for me. Your aunt's ableist views and violent behavior are the root causes of her downfall, not your decision to expose her actions. Self-defense and revealing the truth, especially when it involves protecting oneself from physical harm, is not an act of aggression. It's a necessary step toward justice and personal safety. If your aunt's life is ruined, it's because of her own hateful beliefs and violent actions, not because you shined a light on them. Would anyone argue you're wrong for calling the fire department if she set the house on fire? Same logic. All three stories show how entitlement crumbles when met with a firm boundary. The chair neighbor learned no isn't up for negotiation. The smoothie staff proved that bad rules have a price tag. But story 3 wins for the most severe and necessary consequence. This wasn't just about rudeness or wasted profit. It was about safety, truth, and survival. The aunt's violent entitlement didn't just backfire, it led to handcuffs, and rightfully so. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.